Ooh, how you doing, peeps? Today is Wednesday, the 17th of March, 2021. The time now is about 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The outside temperature on average is about 10 degrees. As it gets shadier like this, it drops down to 7 degrees, and then with the slight wind, you might hear it on camera, gets down to about 5 degrees, so you got to be wrapped up. So March, some might say the beginning of spring. Last year, I believe this time we had a real hot time, summer had come early. Got to double check back, because March I did do a couple of videos out there in the park. It's coming up to, well, it's gone past 1 year officially of lockdown or official recognition that the virus has infected Britain, UK. Hello, my man. Yeah, right. Yeah. Some folks in the background. I don't know if you saw them. So today, we're down in Finsbury Park. This is north of London. Big open space. The sun is in and out today. The background is actually about, this is a play area, brand new play area. They're about to build. The area that was there before was a rockery. People used it to climb rocks, and mainly for the kids and stuff. So they're going to extend the play area, the kids play area, here in Finsbury Park. So 1 year we are into the lockdown. In fact, depending on your point of view, I've been watching the lockdown from December last year. So since it was in China, and the January, February, when you had the Chinese New Year. So I've been watching it from then. We locked down in the UK around the middle of March, around now, officially. And what kind of lockdown was it? I think it was a total lockdown. No school, no transportation. Well, there was transportation, but absolutely no work, no school, no socialization. You could only go to the park and exercise and go shopping. And we're still kind of in a similar lockdown, but the exceptions is the school has opened up just last week, and you can go to work if you can't work from home, and if you're an essential service, then you can still go to work. Well, not that you still can go to work, because you're the essential services. You have to go to work, because without your function and your job, life wouldn't go on. Basic function, eating, transportation wouldn't go on. And so we're still in a tier 4 lockdown. So 3/4 of the shops are closed, because this is non-essential service. In in a couple of weeks' time, at the end of the month, they're going to start easing off on some of the restrictions. So some of the shops will start opening up, and then later on down the line, maybe a month. So we're in March. April is in a couple of weeks' time. March, April, May. In about May, they might start having social events and pubs and clubs. But they're a plan, and this time the government is cautious, overly cautious, in the sense that if they ease the lockdown in too large a go, and we get too much infection, and we get too much hospitalization, then if there's too much of a larger release of the lockdown, and there's a big spike in infection and people dying, then suddenly the reaction is just as it'll be a very fast and hard lockdown. So the government doesn't want to do that. But in either case, the lockdown and restrictions are coming to an end in two kind of ways. The first way is that the people themselves are fed up of being in a lockdown, and they've been sold that the vaccine is the cure to the virus. So once people are vaccinated, they think then that's the cure for the virus. So people believe that they can go back to normal. Some people are actually acting like things are normal already once they've got the vaccination. But the government has insisted, and the general rule is, even if you have the vaccination, if you've been vaccinated, then you still have to continue the same as before, the same rules as before, isolation. And they're now slowly telling you that you can get reinfected even if you get the vaccination. So there is still caution. So that is one aspect of the lockdown coming to an end. The other aspect of the lockdown coming to an end is that the bills, the normal living expenses are still coming in. I've been sent my council tax, and the council demands their first payment at the 1st of April. It means I have to go and find money to pay them. If not, they'll come kicking down the door. They did ease off things for a while, but a few days ago, sent me a letter, new council tax bill, start paying the 1st of April. If you don't, then they start a whole process of not necessarily hunting you down, but even up to the point of sending debt collectors at the door. So they want you to pay the money. You've always got to pay your rent. Those people who haven't been paying their rent, they have a couple more months where the landlord can't kick them out. And after that is eased off, we're going to have a whole heap of people out on the streets, because during the lockdown, some of them haven't been able to get any money to pay rent. Well, exactly the point. They haven't been paying the rent, and if you haven't been paying the rent for a year, it's next to impossible to have that money to pay for a year's rent. So you're going to be out on the streets. There's going to be a whole heap of people out on the streets. Businesses that have been shut down for a year, the government subsidy and furlough is coming to an end. There are businesses, the last one was, I think, the chocolate company Thorntons, who had about 60 shops. They've shut that down. I'm not quite sure whether they've stopped production or they shifted their selling to being online. Shops chain like John Lewis one of the high quality brand shops has shut down. I think it's at least 30% of their shops. All right, so those people are unemployed. So that's an indication of businesses, strong businesses. Some of them very strong businesses that have reduced trading, ceased trading, and individuals with small businesses have it even worse. And especially if you're in the hospitality or the leisure business, like me, some of these businesses are folded. We don't know what it's going to like. We don't know what it's going to be like once restrictions are lifted. And I believe once the restrictions are lifted, we're still going to have restrictions anyway. My view on the virus is that it will be here for a long time, maybe forever. Maybe it's going to be like the common cold, and we have to work with it and live with it just like we do with the common cold. So in a couple of weeks we have Easter. Over in Italy, they're now going into a more serious lockdown. So there's absolutely nothing for Easter. So actually, it's really amazing how we're already in a lockdown, how you could actually get down into an even more serious lockdown. The places like France and Germany and Italy, their kind of lockdown is from like 9 p.m. in the evening. There's a curfew. No one's out. I don't even think anybody can be out for exercising or anything. Like, you're not supposed to be out. We haven't got that kind of curfew over here. But generally, well, there isn't any shops that open up after 9 p.m. anyway, except for food shops. And that's about it, because these are essential services. So Easter, which is in a couple of weeks' time, in Italy and France is now going through a extreme high wave of infection at the moment. Italy is now going through an extreme high wave of infection, just like the first wave. And if there is any country in the European bloc, I would think it's Italy. Italy to me is like the canary in the coal mine. And when it was really hitting Italy hard, I don't think we were doing anything over here, as in the sense of as lockdown. We were just standing watching. And then the Channel Tunnel, the channel, the British Channel, the sea is literally only 30 miles. Some people swim across, actually. So and because of transportation, people going to and from Spain, people going to and from Germany, to the continent back, there was just a continuous flow of people. Like nothing was happening in the sense of virus. It was just normal until Britain got totally infected. Now, what I hear in Italy, the variant in Italy is the Kent variant, which comes from here in the UK, and that's now ravaging Italy again. So they're now going through a whole new scenario, like if it's the beginning. Now, part of the interesting thing is this: one of the immunity scenarios is that they say, well, once you got the infection and you've got antibodies in your bloodstream, then that will give you some kind of protection. But because of the rate of infection at the moment in Italy, then that theory is not holding true again. And so whether you believe in the vaccine or the vaccine is working for you, that is great. But there is nobody, as far as I've heard, that can actually pin down and actually say that the vaccine would completely, now look at that word, completely protect you against the virus. They always say to you, oh, it's 90% effective, or in some cases, if it's a variant, it's 60% effective, or it may reduce the symptoms of the infection if you get a viral infection, while if you got the jab, the immunity, the vaccine. But as far as I can make out, me personally, we are now in March, the middle of March, and the vaccine started in around, it was December, or let's say the beginning of January, and some of the effect of the vaccine should be felt now. But as far as I can make out, I cannot see the effect of the vaccine. Right, the effect of the reduction in death and infection, I think, is due to the lockdown and the isolation. So, because there is a reduction in the death rate and the people in ICU and people being infected, under the condition now, people are beginning to believe, whatever they begin to believe, one, that the vaccine is actually working, and not so much so that we're actually in a tier 4 lockdown situation. It's just last week that the kids have gone back to school. So give it 14 days, they'll be watching very closely to see if the infection rate goes up. In fact, the infection rate has dropped to such a level now that they've actually shut down some of the larger emergency, they call it Nightingales, kind of field hospital, just in case there's a mass upsurge in infection. But this is a strange kind of thing. If you had an underlying condition, they said most people that have passed away have actually had one or two underlying condition, and the mortality of the virus has got them. In a strange way, they're saying there's a backlog of cancer patient, and there's a backlog of the normal hip operation and heart operations and bypasses and hernias and knees operation, and but some of those people, because of their underlying condition, may have passed away, sadly passed away. So we're in a real different. I'm not calling it a new normal. I'm calling it a new world. There's no such thing as normal for me, anyway. Right? It's called a new world. My brother passed away a month or so ago. He'll be buried in a couple of weeks. We've got the different things we're handling with our father passing away quite a while back. And so we add that to the situation. Then we add the whole family situation, the different dynamics and different things from different family. Then I'm having a lot of fun. And so what I'm doing is that I'm beginning to communicate on a more. So that's the family thing. So handling the family thing, that I don't want to say it's crazy. That has its own crazy. Each individual has their own situation, their own how they view things. What I'm doing in a more personal capacity is that I'm now beginning to communicate with people as I'm viewing that the lockdown is actually going to start easing off and people are going to start to move into some kind of some. I'm trying to avoid that word new normal. You shouldn't use the word normal. You should use the word to a new world or new situation. There's normal is referring back to how things were. Things can never be how they were before. Financially, economically, socially, politically, right? We're talking about George Floyd. We're talking about Black Lives Matter. We're talking about Saturday. We had a protest by the women's movement, or just say women in general, that there has been a murder, a high-profile murder, and it just happened to be the person who's committed the murder. The criminal, in fact, is a police officer, and the irony, the double entendre about this. The same people that women rely on to protect them are the ones who actually they're frightened of. And what demonstrated the point on Saturday was that the arrest of some women protesters who were there commemorating the death of one of their sisters, and they were arrested in a very, I wouldn't say a very vigorous way, and you know it was the force used to handle the women was not proportional, and it reminded me of the Greenland Common protest. Do you remember when the women were protesting outside of it was a base. It was American aeroplane base where they had nuclear weapons or nuclear weapons base, and it reminded me of those footages back in them days when they were dragging the women away. You know, the women was tying themselves to the fence and the post and this is like 30-40 years ago, and some of the women had made mention that, you know, they've been fighting for respect and non-violence and society to treat them equal from all that time, from all, you know, 30-40 years ago, and literally saying nothing has changed. And it reminded me of a friend of mine who actually got an article in one of the daily papers about racism, which haven't changed from 30-40 years ago. And if you go back to the Black Lives Movement, George Floyd, which I think they're starting the proceedings in America right now to prosecute the police officer who killed the brother George Floyd. Racism, systemic and historical and institutional racism, still there, strong. You know, from 40 years ago, you know, I remember the days of death in custody. Even from the police stations down the road, we still had death in custody from a few years back. But the thing about George Floyd, it's not even death in custody, it's actually death on the street in front of everybody, you know, and this is how people feel so blatant, you know, and these are law enforcement officers, you know. So this is so things haven't changed. The wind is, I'm gonna put a fill in for that. We're gonna still continue. Yeah. So things haven't changed. Yeah, so things haven't changed for 30, 40 years. And so it's a new world, you know. It's a new world. There's gonna be. So I really don't know what's next. So you have to handle and negotiate things. You know, different people, different organizations. Plus, with the UK, we've left the European Union. We've Brexited, and that connection now is severed. So we got that effect, and I believe that in a couple of months' time, I'm not 100% sure on the information, the people from Europe will need to be carrying or registered their stay here or their rights of aboard here, because the EU thing has changed that from the first, you know. But the other thing also, the politicians are still continuing to not be honest and truthful to the people. One of the reasons we actually Brexited was because the politicians said it was because of Europe we've had all these problems, right? Now, the problems you have in your personal life is because of you got to pay your rent, you got to pay the electricity, the rent has gone up, the fuel prices has gone up. I've heard none of the government ministers, anybody stand by and say, you know, this affects people every day. That brings your cost of living up. There is reductions in resources. There's reductions in building houses. The cost of housing is actually going up. The mayor's up for election. That mayor now had made promise that he was going to build X amount of housing. Has he done it? Has he done any affordable housing? Right? The young people today, because of the rising prices of houses, it is very hard to buy a house. Right? It's very hard to buy a place. In fact, it's very expensive to live in London. There are some people who work in London who live outside of London. They commute in. Cost of commuting, the cost of transportation has actually gone up. If you're driving in London, we got congestion charge, right? And it's 7 days a week from 7 till 10 a.m. at night, right? So you literally can't drive through central London. So the cost of living has gone up. Now, instead of politicians actually blaming Europe or blaming migrant forces, right? Start addressing those things, right? Those are the basic things and prices that affect people every day. You know, that's where politicians actually stand up and start addressing those things, right? Look at the last thing they did about the nurses' pay rise, 1%. Now, that does not even pay for parking for 1 hour, right? Not even just say pay for parking. It doesn't pay for parking for 1 hour. The proposed rate of 1% for the nurses. Now, if these are essential workers, in this crisis and in this situation, they are the soldiers on the front line. They are the lifesavers. Literally, they are the lifesavers. And look how they're treated, right? And even during the pandemic, they were being charged. We're still in the pandemic, right? We have adapted slightly to the situation. So during the peak part of the pandemic, they were actually charging them to park their cars in the car park, and when you don't pay the parking, they'll fine you and tow your car away. And they were doing that to the nurses. And as far as I know, they're still doing that to the nurses. So this pay rise, 1%, right, which is like £3, which doesn't pay for parking for 1 hour, which doesn't even probably pay for the increase in fares, which goes up like every year, London transport, or if you commute, right? And the other increases, food prices, and that kind of thing, the electricity price and what have you, doesn't even cover the electricity price, in fact. So this is where politicians has got to, they've got to come down and start helping the people. In fact, most of the policies is really to help the rich become richer and the poor become poor. And what will happen is that we're going to have more people going to be unemployed in a couple of months' time. We're going to have more people being out on the streets because they haven't paid their rent for the last year, because they haven't been able to work. Some people haven't been able to get the government money, the furlough money. Some people have fallen through. There's business people, their businesses is gone on, and that these are the sort of self-employed and small business. They're going to be out on the street. So let me add the third thing to that. The unemployment thing. They are now asking people, coming down very, very strict on people now. Go look for work. You got to be doing this 35 hours of job search. And so even that now is asking people to do things. Really coming down heavy on people. So they're coming down so heavy on people for that little money they get in to subsist on. It's not even living, they just exist on it, subsistent, right? They're coming down so heavy, like it's equivalent like there's no pandemic, there's no restrictions. They want you to get out there, they want you to be out there looking for jobs. So that that gives you the impression that there's no pandemic, there's no restrictions. Like I said, the bills are still coming in, right? And then the other thing is that people can't take the lockdown anymore. Whether you call it lockdown fever, whether you call it craziness, they are just, some people are very, very emotional. The pressures are reaching them. So it's really crazy out there. So here we are once again, Finsbury Park. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of March 2021. Temperature is about 10 degrees. The weather is overcast at the moment. There was sun earlier on, and you can see we're still in a tier 4 lockdown. Easter is meant to be a couple of weeks. We are adjusting, some of us are adjusting to the situation. Now, just because we are adjusting to the situation, the bills are coming in, the council tax is coming in, there's reduction in government subsidy to those people who can't work. So ahead of us is going to be some real hard social problems, homelessness, people haven't got places to stay, people haven't got jobs because the jobs are gone. The subsistence, the small amount of money that the government gives you to subsist on, as in unemployment benefit, that for some people is going to be one massive drop in lifestyle and status. So they might just lose it. We have an epidemic, a kind of mini epidemic now of mental health problems. People are jumping off the roof. People are jumping off the bridge. So some of us are adapting to the situation. So that's a little bit about me and my situation at the moment. That over there is that is going to be for constructing. So this is Finsbury Park. That's going to be, they're going to extend the kids' playground and stuff. So they're in the process of doing that right now. So from me, from Finsbury Park, I hope you got a place to stay. I hope you got food to eat. I hope you got which is very important. Some social interaction, whether you got a pet, dog, people to speak to, and you know, I'm not going to say this is over, but you got to find a way of adapting to the situation in order to continue. And on that note, I'll catch you guys up next time.